The following video will provide ideas and inspiration for providing garden experiences for children, including sprouting activities, maintaining a garden, and a compost bin. You will fulfill professional development commitments to a continuing education in the areas of nutrition, physical activity, and gardening by watching this video. By the end of this video, you will learn how to build your own wicking beds and worm bins in the context of teaching children the importance of growing and eating seasonal produce.
Hi, my name is Senira Rivera Barreto, a health educator with Sacramento County Public Health. This gardening and composting training is brought to you by funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the State Physical Activity and Nutrition Program SPAN. The production of this video has been brought to you by the California Department of Public Health Future of Public Health Funding, in collaboration with Del Paso Heights Growers Alliance, Sacramento Public Library, Colonial Heights, The Worm Whisperer Farms, SJ Media Sylvian Ranch Community Garden, CSU Chico's Centers for Healthy Community SPAN program, and MindMail Learning. We hope you enjoy this gardening training video.
This introductory training will provide early childhood education providers the basic concepts of container gardening using wicking beds and vermicomposting. You will learn the fundamentals of wicking beds, vermicomposting, and researching the free garden education resources through your local Sacramento County Public Libraries. It will lay the foundation for successful growing strategies and water conservation. You will also learn how to recycle natural resources in your garden. Providers will learn the advantages and disadvantages of container gardening using wicking beds and composting with worms. 9 learning objectives. At the conclusion of this training, providers will be able to: number 1, learn the basic container gardening skills to grow seasonal fruits and vegetables. Number 2, explain the value of container gardening using wicking beds in the context of water conservation and self-watering systems. Number 3, identify the basic components of a wicking bed. Number 4, learn how to build and maintain a wicking bed. Number 5, explain the value of vermicomposting using worms to recycle carbon and nitrogen. Number 6, identify the basic components of a worm bin. Number 7, learn how to build and maintain a worm bin for vermicomposting. Number 8, develop strategies for obtaining free gardening resources from your local library. Number 9, conduct effective gardening and nutrition education with children ages 0 to 5. Gardening 101. Few experiences can match the pleasure of savoring homegrown vegetables, especially if you grow them from your seed or your young plants, also called seedlings. The flavor and number of varieties that you can grow far exceed what you can buy at a grocery store. Growing vegetables does not have to be time-consuming or difficult. Experience really is the best teacher, and as your knowledge increases, so will the rewards of gardening for you and the children you serve. Site selection. You do not need a large space for your vegetable garden. If you choose to grow in containers, a yard is not needed. However, the following elements are critical to growing yummy vegetables. Sunshine. Choose a site for your garden that gets at least 6 to 8 hours of full sunlight per day. Avoid shaded areas like under a tree or large shrub, and do not grow along the north side of tall buildings or fences. Water. Vegetables need water to grow, and the closer your garden is to water, the better. This is why wicking bed is the best solution, because it is a self-watering system so your plants don't dry out. Wicking beds are traditionally raised beds filled with dirt that to sit on top of and then on a reservoir of water. Good soil. If you plan to grow vegetables in a container, do not use garden soil. Instead, fill the container with high-quality potting mix. Your soil should be something between clay, fine-textured heavy soil, and sand, coarse-textured light soil. Most vegetables need loose, crumbly soil that drains water well, but still holds moisture. Composting 101. No soil is perfect, but fixing bad soil is not hard. Very light or very heavy soils can be modified with compost, also known as organic amendments, to increase the water holding capacity or to improve drainage. Examples of organic amendments are compost or lawn clippings, so that is why a vermicomposting bin is the ideal companion to a container garden, because you can use earthworms to create your own compost and feed your garden. Additional nitrogen may be needed when organic matter is used. Nitrogen is a vital ingredient to decomposting and a critical plant nutrient, but it cannot be both at the same time. As organic amendments decompose, they can tie up nitrogen that would otherwise be feeding your plants. If your amendments is not completely composted, you may need to add a nitrogen fertilizer. Or you can feed your worm food scraps, carbon like brown leaves, and nitrogen like green leaves and grass clippings. Then the worms break this down, and then you have high quality worm castings or organic matter like compost that you can add to your garden soil. What to plant? While it's tempting to try and grow a large variety of vegetables, a better approach is to consider what you and the children you care for like to eat. Then consider the space you have available. Plant only as large of a garden as you can easily maintain, as there's some time commitment for proper care. A smaller, properly tended garden will be more productive and satisfying than a larger garden. Be sure to plant veggies adopted from your growing area. If you have little space, it might be advisable to plant varieties that do not become too large, or to select varieties that can be grown vertically on trellises or wires. Seeds and plants. You can grow many vegetables from a seed, but you can also buy young plants from a nursery or garden center. If you sow seeds into the garden soil, you must wait for the ground to warm up enough to germinate the seed. Carrots and beans are two vegetables that require direct seeding. With direct seeding, you can place the seeds into the soil at the recommended depth. Generally, seeds should be covered to a depth equal to 2 to 4 times the diameter of the seed. But check out the seed packet for this information. Water thoroughly and then wait for that plant to emerge. Vegetables most commonly bought as young plants for transplanting are tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, broccoli, celery, cabbage, cauliflower, and eggplant. When purchasing seedling, select short, stout, healthy plants that are not yet producing flowers, buds, or fruits. Roots should not be sticking out through any of the drainage holes. You can also grow transplants from seeds to give you the much wider universe of varieties to try. Starting vegetables indoors is not difficult, but it does require some time and attention. Seed packets provide information for planting particular seeds. When to plant? Timing is everything. Some crops like to mature in cool weather in the spring and fall, like cool season vegetables, but others prefer warmth of summer, like warm season vegetables. Now let me give you some examples of cool season vegetables. Cool season vegetables grow best and produce the best quality crops when average daytime temperatures are 55 to 75 degrees, and they usually tolerate slight frost when they mature. Examples include artichoke, asparagus, beets, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, chard, lettuce, onions, parsnip, potatoes, radish, spinach, and turnips. Here are the examples of warm season vegetables. Warm season vegetables require long, hot days and warm soil to mature. They grow best and produce the best quality crops when average daytime temperatures are 65 to 95 degrees, and they are intolerant of freezing temperatures. Examples include beans like lima and snap, corn, eggplant, melons, peppers, pumpkins, squash, summer and winter, and tomatoes. Seed plants is too early when the soil is too cold for germination may rot, and transplants may become stunted or die unless you provide cold protection to the plants. Check the date of the last frost in your area. Mulch. Using a layer of organic mulch around plants helps conserve soil moisture and reduce the frequency of irrigation. And it also discourages the growth of weeds, which compete with your vegetables for water and nutrients. Examples of organic mulches that you can use are leaves, pesticides-free lawn clippings, fresh sawdust, fine wood shavings, pine needles, or compost, hay, and chopped straw. The ideal mulch is light and open enough to permit the passage of water and air. Fertilization. A good water and fertilizer schedule promotes healthy plants which yield better homegrown vegetables. Healthy plants are less susceptible and tolerant of insect damage and fungal diseases. Many gardens are over-fertilized or given the wrong ratios of the well-known trio NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. In general, the plants will need nitrogen. However, some soils are low in available phosphorus and some are deficient in potassium. If you have tested your soil, you will know what nutrients are needed. You can either use organic forms such as composted manures, cottonseed meal, bone meal, blood meal, and compost, or inorganic forms of chemical fertilizers to supply needed nutrients. Organic fertilizers are less caustic than inorganic fertilizers, and except for poultry manure, may be used with little possibility of damage to plants. The nutrients from organic fertilizers are rather slowly made available to plants. This may be an advantage where delayed release is desired to promote plant growth over an extended period. Composting or vermicomposting. Making a compost pile is an ideal way to recycle organic waste from your home and community. Composting turns kitchen garden scraps, garden residuals, leaves, lawn clippings, weeds, wood products, and many other normally unused materials into a dark, sweet-smelling garden soil amendment. Lastly, backyard gardeners with limited space should at least avoid planting exactly the same crop or crops from the same family year after year in the same part of the garden. For example, do not follow melons with cucumbers or squash, and do not plant peppers, eggplants, or potatoes where tomatoes grew the year before to prevent diseases and pests. Harvesting! This is what it's all about. To get the most out of your vegetables, harvest them when they are at the best stage for eating. Vegetables will be crisper and cooler if harvested early in the morning. Keep a journal. Record what vegetable varieties you grew and indicate which vegetable crops and varieties did well or poorly. Record specific garden pest problems and when they occur. I would like to introduce you to Darian, who is an instructor with the Del Paso Heights Growers Alliance. Darren will be discussing the benefits of wicking beds, and he will show you how to build your very own.
Introduction to wicking beds. Hi, I'm Darian, instructor with the Del Paso Heights Growers Alliance, and today I'll be explaining the value of container gardening using wicking beds in the context of water conservation and self-watering systems. I'll be teaching you how to understand the basic concepts and identify the basic components of a wicking bed. And finally, I'll demonstrate how to build and maintain a wicking bed. By the end of this video, you will understand what wicking beds are and how they work. You'll learn the benefits of utilizing these beds for water conservation and space saving. Lastly, I will also discuss how to scale these beds for larger garden applications. Value of container gardening using wicking beds. 1. Water conservation. 2. Self-watering system. 3. Environmental controls, such as nutrient inputs and weed control. A raised bed is an excellent addition for any home garden. A raised wicking bed is a self-contained method for growing vegetables, fruits, herbs, and flowers. The bed provides a built-in water reservoir that allows plants to water themselves. The design is ideal for individuals who are new to gardening, but experienced gardeners will find it helpful as well. The greatest benefit of this system is that it provides control of the water supply to the plants within a defined area. By design, water for plant growth is provided by a reservoir located in the base of the bed. Wicking beds use capillary action to provide plants with water to the root zone. Capillary action is a rise of liquid created by increasing surface tension, which allows water to defeat gravity and move up. Even though the water table may be at one level, capillary action can move water up to approximately 4 inches above the water table. Having a moisture zone and a source of water creates an ideal environment for growing plants. Overwatering and underwatering are remedied by the plant's ability to self-regulate their water requirement. The advantages of a wicking bed are: 1. The output per unit area makes them ideal for those with limited space, plus it extends the watering schedule. 2. Since wicking beds water from the bottom up, the soil surface is drier, which reduces weed competition, evaporation, and foliar disease infection. 3. Watering from the bottom up promotes water efficiency and conservation by reducing evaporation from the surface of the soil and runoff. 4. The water reservoir can detain and capture water from rainfall events and reduce nutrient loss. 5. Plants receive more consistent water and won't suffer drought stress because it's always available in the reservoir. The disadvantages of a wicking bed are: 1. They are more expensive to create than traditional gardens or beds. 2. A raised bed has limited soil and nutrient holding capacity. Therefore, side dressing with fertilizer may be needed during the growing season. 3. Because water is not flowing through regularly, salts can build up to a level that can damage plants. 4. With a large shared reservoir, root pathogens, such as water molds, can spread easily within the bed. What materials and tools do you need? First, you begin by gathering your wicking bed materials. For this particular build, you're going to need the following materials and tools. Here are the materials needed. 1 27-gallon storage container with lid. 1 2-foot length of 3/4 inch PVC pipe. 1 3.5-foot section of 4-inch French drain. 8 6-inch pots. These don't need to be expensive. 1 4 feet of shade cloth, weed block, fabric, or geotextile material. 1 bag or 2 cubic feet of potting soil. 1 bag or bucket of mulch. Here are the tools you will need. 1. A drill. 2. A step bit up to 1 inch. 3. 2 drill bits, 1/4 inch and 11/32 of an inch. 4. A skill saw or saw. 5. Scissors or a utility knife. And 6. Sharpie or a marker. How to build a wicking bed. To start the process, you're going to need to start by cutting the lid of the storage container just inside the lip. Start by drilling 2 small holes next to one another on the lid, ensuring that the saw blade will fit through the hole. Make the cutout and then, using the same drill bit, drill holes through the main portion of the lid. This will allow for the water to make contact through the weed block and help wick the water into the remainder of the bed. You will also need to cut a circle out of the lid that will just fit one of your pots. This is what's referred to as the wicking column, set aside for later. Next, drill several holes on the bottom of the 2-foot section of PVC pipe. This will be the water overflow channel. The purpose of drilling these holes on the one side is to keep the soil out of the drain holes and getting washed out when you water your wicking bed. Now, place the 3.5-foot section of French drain and some pots into the storage bin in order to gauge where you will need to cut the lid. This will ensure everything will fit properly. Make the French drain cut in the lid. Then place 6 to 8 pots into the container with the French drain. Place the lid on top and use the lid as a guide. Then take your overflow drain PVC pipe and place it over the top of the lid and mark where the PVC hits both sides of the bin. Using the step bit, drill a 1-inch hole through each of your marks. I chose a 3/4 inch PVC because the outer diameter of the pipe is 1 inch. Now we are ready to fit some pieces of weed block into the wicking bed. Line the interior of the wicking bed with the weed block, making sure to cover any gaps between the weed block and container. The better you do this, the less soil runs into your reservoir. It doesn't have to be perfect though. I typically like to do a cross pattern with the weed block. It seems to really help with the coverage. Make sure to leave some excess in the center of the bed for the wicking column. Push the weed block down into the circular cutout of the lid. Make sure the weed blocker is folded over the top of the container so that when the lid is placed on top, it will hold the weed blocker in place. Place a pot inside, then fill the space with good quality potting soil mix. Make sure to leave about 1 to 2 inches of room for mulch. The mulch acts as a moisture barrier and helps reduce water loss due to evaporation. The basic build is done. You can move the bed into a spot that gets plenty of light. Now, grab some plants, get them in the soil. Using the opening from the French drain, fill your wicking bed with water until the water runs out of the overflow PVC pipe. It is full once water starts flowing out of the bed. For the first watering after planting, I would recommend top watering to kick off the wicking process. Typical watering cycles are roughly once a week depending on the season. Maintenance of your wicking beds. Maintenance of these beds are minimal. The most maintenance required would be to amend the soil to add nutrients. The nutrients can be fertilizer, compost, or plant-based food scraps, not citrus. But the best nutrients for your plants would be from worm castings, harvested from your own worm bins. If your plants suddenly die, you may need to drain your wicking bed of all water and refill it again. Sometimes anaerobic conditions, which simply put is a lack of oxygen, can occur in the bed and can be detrimental to your plants. A solution to correct for anaerobic conditions is to aerate the water when filling your wicking bed. This is a simple solution. Just make sure you fill the reservoir by placing the end of the hose near the ridges in the fill spout and have enough flow to create a lot of disturbance in the water going into the bed. If anaerobic conditions are still present, you will need to deconstruct the bed and sanitize the reservoir with bleach or a vinegar solution. Bleach would be preferred. To wrap this up, there are many benefits to using wicking beds for your home garden. They save water, save space, are portable, and can be scaled for larger gardens like those behind me. There are a couple downsides though. You're gonna need to add nutrients to the beds on an occasion, and sometimes anaerobic conditions can occur. The best way to reduce these issues is to add vermicompost to the beds on a seasonal basis, and on rare occasions clean the reservoir with a mild soap or bleach solution. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have fun growing an amazing garden.
Now I'd like to introduce you to Antoine, who is also an instructor with the Del Paso Heights Growers Alliance. Antoine will be discussing the benefits of a worm bed.
Introduction to worm beds. Hi, I'm Antoine Jackson, vermiculture instructor with the Del Paso Heights Growing Alliance. And today I'll be explaining the value of vermicomposting in the context of natural resource recycling and carbon and nitrogen systems. I'll be teaching you how to identify the basic components of a worm bin. And finally, I'll demonstrate how to build and maintain your worm bin for vermicomposting. By the end of this video, you will understand what vermicomposting is and how to set up and maintain your own worm bin for your garden. Value of vermicomposting in the context of organic materials. Vermicomposting, or worm composting, is the decomposition and conversion of organic waste, leftover foods, yard waste, or even paper with the help of worms. Vermicomposting is a process that relies on red wigglers and microorganisms to help stabilize active organic materials and convert them to a valuable soil amendment and source of plant nutrient, called black gold by most gardeners. Red wigglers will consume most organic materials, including food preparation residuals and leftovers, scrap paper, farm animal manure, agricultural crop residues, organic byproduct from industries, and yard trimmings. Worms can recycle your garbage. Paper and paperboard products account for 23%, food scraps 21%, and yard trimmings make up 12% by weight of the waste we make. This information came from the U.S. EPA 2018 Wasted Food Report. Organic waste is linked to climate change. Landfills are the third largest human-related source of methane in the U.S. Food residuals are the largest source of methane in landfills, according to the U.S. EPA 2019 Methane Emissions Report. Vermicomposting turns waste organic materials into a valuable product, vermicompost. That enhances soil by increasing its porosity, water-holding capacity, texture, and reduces erosion. Vermicompost may also help plants grow bigger, increase crop yields, and decrease plant diseases and pest attacks. Of the 9,000 plus species of red wigglers, only 7 species have been identified as good for vermicomposting. The most commonly used species is Eisenia foetida, otherwise known as the red wiggler. Do not buy red wigglers from a bait shop. You need at least 1,000 red wigglers, about 1 pound in weight, and bait shops only sell about a dozen worms per cup. Buy red wigglers by the pound from a wet wriggler grower like me. Proper temperatures, moisture, oxygen levels, and pH should be maintained. Temperature limits between 55 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, with around 70 degrees being ideal. As temperatures go farther below or above these limits, the worms will decrease the amount they eat and breed. Moisture limits are 60 to 85%, with 80% being optimum. Oxygen, air, is necessary, so make sure your worm bin has holes to allow airflow to flow through. Try to maintain a pH level of 7.0 in the bin. Red wigglers will consume about 25% of their body weight per day. The number of red wigglers you have is measured in pounds. Remember, there are approximately 1,000 red wigglers per pound, if they are adults. There may be 500 worms. They are all juveniles. There could be 2,000 worms. Thus, 1 pound of red wigglers may potentially eat 1/4 pound of food per day. However, you should only add more food to the worm bin after the food you have previously added has been consumed. Important note, your red wigglers need to be shielded from light and rain, so be sure to cover the bin with something such as a lid, burlap sacks, cardboard, loose plastic, or plywood. Make sure that oxygen can flow into the bin and drill air holes. There also should be some way to drain excess liquid from the bin. Drilling holes in the bottom can help with drainage. But note, if you are vermicomposting correctly, excess liquid will not accumulate in the bin. Where to keep a worm bin? Worm bins can be kept indoors or outdoors in the shade. Your red wigglers will survive at 32 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit if they have at least 4 inches of bedding, and you can insulate the bin during colder months. You can insulate your worm bin with blankets, straw, blue board, or other materials to keep it warm. Harvesting vermicompost. After 3 to 6 months, enough vermicompost to harvest will be in the bottom of your worm bin. Choose one of these 2 methods for harvesting. 1. Feed worms on one side of the bin for a few weeks. After most worms move to the side of the bin, remove vermicompost from the other half of the bin, add fresh bedding, and start feeding only on one side of the bin. Repeat this process. 2. Empty worm bins onto a plastic sheet under strong light. After a few minutes, collect worm-free vermicompost and place in a container or plastic bag pricked with a few tiny holes. Next, put in the worm bin, fresh bedding, old bedding, and any worms that were removed from the pile. Worms will move away from light, so continue to remove vermicompost from the top of the pile and put worms back in the bin. Bedding. This can be a mixture of 1. Shredded non-glossy newspaper, 2. Office paper or cardboard, 3. Brown leaves, 4. Finished compost, 5. Sawdust or straw, 6. Coconut pith fiber, 7. Rotted and rinsed horse manure or rabbit manure. Place your bedding materials in a bucket of water and let it soak for 24 hours. Wring it out so it is a little wetter than a moist sponge. Fluff it up as you plant it into the bin. Fill the bin about half full of moist bedding and mix in a handful of worm castings. Worm food. Feed the worms vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and filters, tea bags, fruit scraps, and pills, moistened bread, and shredded napkins. Always add cardboard to feed. Remember the 80-20 carbon and nitrogen rule. And what that means is for every handful of food you have, you want to add 3 to 5 handfuls of cardboard to the food and then bury that in a corner of your worm bin. Do not feed the worms meat, fish, dairy products, citrus fruit, greasy foods, bones, twigs and branches, or pet feces. Odorous food, like onions, should be avoided because it can make the worm bin smell bad. Always mix food with cardboard. Wait until food scraps are eaten before adding more. Using vermicompost. Vermicompost can be used immediately or stored for later use. It can be added to indoor or outdoor plants by placing 2 tablespoons of vermicompost per quart of potting mix around the base of a plant every 2 to 4 weeks. When starting seedlings, add 1 part vermicompost to 4 parts of potting soil. Before transplanting plants from small containers or flats to garden beds or larger pots, add half a cup of vermicompost to the whole for planting. When transplanting larger plants, shrubs and trees, add 1 to 2 cups of vermicompost to the whole. Vermicompost can be used as the top dress with 6 quarts, approximately 7 pounds of vermicompost per 100 square feet of established lawns too. How to build a worm bin. Today, we are building worm bins for outdoor garden or patio use to compost yard and food waste through a process of decomposition called vermiculture. These bins will allow you to utilize your food and yard waste and feed your soil with the help of red wigglers. And you can do this in your home or daycare garden. Let's get started and build the 2 by 1.5 by 1.5 foot worm bin. To make your bin kit, you will need the following tools and materials. Let's start with the tools. 1, a drill. 2, Phillips head drill bit. 3, a drill bit up to 1 inch. And 4, a table saw. 5, scissors or a utility knife. And 6, sandpaper. Materials needed: 2 count 2-foot 2x4s, 8 count 1.5 foot 1x1s, 3, 1 piece of 6-inch by 10-inch standard chicken wire, 4, 20 count 1 1/2 sheetrock screws, 5, 20 count 3-inch sheetrock screws. Assembly of the worm bed. First, we'll assemble the base by attaching the 2x4 pieces. Then you will attach the 1.5-inch pieces inside of the 2-foot pieces to form a rectangle shape. This is your base. You will attach the provided screen posts in the center of your rectangle base. Now that you have your base in post, it's time to attach slates and complete the bin. Slates will be drilled into the posts. Slates are pre-cut to size. It's so simple to match correct length to correct fitting side and drill. Your bin is now complete. Final step. It's time to get your bin started with bedding. I suggest the 80-20 rule for carbon and nitrogen, so we will be utilizing cardboard as our base carbon. Thank you again and happy gardening.
You can find free seeds at the select Sacramento Public Library branches. Make sure to visit the link below to learn more. Grow a variety of herbs, ornamentals, and edible plants. Save money and reduce your carbon footprint by growing nutritious food at home. Grow your garden from non-GMO or non-genetically modified heirloom seeds. Learn which heirloom plants are ideally suited for Sacramento's weather. Where are all the seed libraries located? Seed libraries are available at Arcade, Colonial Heights, Noni Wetzel Courtland, Galt Marin O'Lawrence, Isleton, McKinley, North Sacramento Hagenwood, and in Orangevale, Robbie Waters, Pocket Greenhaven, Rio Linda, Southgate, South Natomas, and Walnut Grove libraries. How much are the seeds? The seed libraries are completely free of charge and available to anyone. No library card required. Thank you for watching and happy gardening. This training video is brought to you by the El Paso Heights Growers Alliance. Our mission is to build sustainable neighborhoods and economies through policy, advocacy, and experiential education. Hi, Shalene here, and we have a big shout out to Chuck and the Sylvan Ranch Community Garden. Here in this local community, they've been able to actually donate 1,500 pounds of food to community food closets around the community that's doing amazing give backs. So if you want to learn more about them, make sure you check out the link below and come on over. They even have beds for rent, right?
For rent, $65 a year.
$65 a year. Come on out. It's a beautiful garden. You don't want to miss it.